Let's talk to Dr. Dean Eggett, our favourite GP. He's in Doncaster, of course. He's CEO of Doncaster Local Medical Committee. Dr. Dean, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again. Welcome back. And thanks for coming on a Friday, because normally this is one of your days off, isn't it? Just kidding, obviously.
Yeah, you've got me at work today.
Yeah, good man. We were quite shocked by the response, because I'd never seen anything like this before yesterday, and it was a letter from the GP surgery that this guy's mother was involved in. But loads and loads of people joined in the conversation and said, yeah, we've had the same. Our GPs have also sent us a similar missive in which it says that, you know, you can no longer ring up. You now have to apply for an appointment online. And if you need to be seen by somebody, it might be that we do it online. It might be that we see you over video or something like that. It seems to me, anyway, maybe you can tell me it's not true. It seems to me that this is quite a common practice now.
Yeah, it's absurd. It is sadly increasingly common, but I think it's probably because some GP practices have taken some guidance a little bit too far. So at the moment, NHS England is guiding us into this thing called modern general practice, rather than the good old-fashioned days where you turn up at your GP or you phone up. Or even your GP books you back in, you wait a couple of weeks and see somebody. That system is now seen as inefficient. Right. And what we're supposed to do is triage every single patient. We're supposed to read through why they're coming in and decide whether or not they need to be seen urgently or even by the general practice. So there's supposed to be some sort of overview of patients before they turn up.
Right.
One of the ways of doing that is online. It doesn't have to be online. It can be face-to-face or actually via telephone.
Yeah, I mean, and again, you know, all of these things you can sort of understand by way of trying to clear up the backlog and try to clear up, you know, why people shouldn't be waiting a long time. But I would have thought it's not too much to ask to have a kind of a drop-in centre approach as well, so that if you are, you know, feeling a bit poorly, or you've got a child that you've just taken out of school who's been sick, you might want to drop in and say, you know, do you mind just having a look at little Johnny, see how he's doing, or do you mind having a look at me to see how I'm doing? You know, if that disappears, I think that's a big loss to the community, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree. And we GPs used to do that a lot, and we actually used to really enjoy it. The concept of turn up, take a seat, and when it's your turn, it's your turn. But general practice isn't anymore just about seeing patients. There's so much more computer work, administration work, letters, and various bits of work that isn't actually about seeing patients. So when a patient does turn up, we're busy doing these other bits of paperwork. Where do we fit the patient in? Because it's all got to be done. I'd rather we went back to seeing patients, but that's just not the way general practice is anymore. So if people turn up, I don't know how to fit them in the day.
Yeah, right. And, you know, I know you and I have had these conversations over and over again, and we go round and round the same kind of, sort of chat. But at the end of the day, how has it become so difficult for you to do your job? And I don't want to hear the whole kind of, you know, government have underfunded it. In terms of just time and in terms of people, how has it become so difficult?
So I'm going to be as open and blunt about this as possible. You know, back in times like the 80s and 70s, your GP would do 6, 7, 8 home visits a day. And essentially they knew what was going on before they went to see you. They'd turn up there, and the prescription was largely written before they even saw you. When they saw you, it was just a case of tick, seen, gone. And the home visit might have been 2 minutes, it might have been half an hour for a cup of tea, but there wasn't really a great deal of in-depth medicine. Certainly the drugs didn't exist then, the pathways didn't exist then, and the tests didn't exist then. Right. So what's the difference between then and now is the complexity of the medicine and actually the medico-legal aspect of it. That if I just give a prescription to a patient because I think I know what's going on and I'm wrong, I get sued, whereas back in the day you didn't.
Right.
Now, it's right, of course, that we get sued if things go wrong, but it does mean that things are much more complex. There are more tests.
See, I knew that. See, I think you put your finger on it. The heart of all this is I used to find this in America. Bloody lawyers are ruining the country. You know, I used to know people in states in America who had stopped doing obstetrics, for example. They wouldn't actually help women to give birth because the insurance was so high, you know, against malpractice that they just couldn't afford to do it. And so you suddenly had, in some states, and in this one particular was in North Carolina, they had some states where you couldn't find a general doctor who would actually help you give birth.
Yes, absolutely. So we've changed to much more defensive practice. And again, I'm being open and blunt and honest. When I
Sure.
walk out of my room to go grab my patient from the waiting room, as soon as they're walking towards me, I've usually got the diagnosis. It becomes quite simple after a period of time to know what's happening with the patient, what to do. But I still have to go through the motions of asking the questions, doing the test, even though I know what's going on because of the medical legal aspects of it, and I don't want to miss anything.
Right.
So it takes a great deal longer than it ever used to do.
Okay. And you've often said to me, look, the reason that you do 3 days rather than 5 as a GP and you do work in the other 2 days is because it's more stressful, you're seeing more people, you're having less time to see each of them. That doesn't quite tally with what you've just said, does it? Because what you're saying is you actually spend more time with people than you used to, and you actually are pretty knowledgeable about their state before you even see them.
Well, it does tally because in the days where you might do 6 or 7 home visits and it was quick and simple, the 10, 15, 20 drugs for that patient didn't exist at the time. So you didn't have to think about it. The tests didn't exist at the time, so you didn't have to think about it. So the cognitive burden, the thought processes that go into each patient now is much more complex.
Right.
So although I'm pretty good at it and fast at it, it doesn't mean that the thought process is still simple. It's extraordinarily complex,
Right.
but just within a short period of time.
But what I'm saying, without wishing to denude what you do, it doesn't sound that stressful, is what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, I suppose, but having said that, if I diagnose a patient as having a simple viral cold and actually what they've got is the first presentation of leukemia and they don't have an immune system, I would say that's pretty stressful. I can't get that wrong. I've got to be accurate on it.
But that's not going to happen every
time.
day, though, is it? In fairness.
Well, actually, that is exactly what general practice is about. So every day when I see patients with coughs, colds, and sore throats, quite frankly, a cough and a cold can go away without me. It doesn't need me. What I'm looking for is the needle in the haystack. Every single patient to me is dying until I can prove otherwise. I'm trying to find those patients who are at serious risk, and I have to screen every single patient for that.
That's a terribly pessimistic view of life, isn't it? I mean, you sound like you should be Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister. You know, Dr. Glooby. You know, are you dying? No. Can I just have some aspirin? Yes. I mean, sorry, it's next patient, right? I mean, I can do that.
It's a gloomy approach, and actually, we need doctors, Mike. So if you want to come here and work with me, I'm very happy.
You know what? I'd love to come and spend a day with you. Maybe I'll do that because I know Isabel Oakeshott did that, and she speaks very highly of you, and I speak very highly of you as well. But I'd love to do that, actually.
You'd be very welcome. I would love you to see what I do and actually even to teach you a little bit of medicine. But it's extraordinarily complex and it's getting harder by the day.
OK. Good to talk to you. Dr. Dean Eggett, a very good egg, if you don't mind me saying so.